There we go. Alrighty. Good afternoon, students. So this week, I've decided to get you all focused on building structures. Um, I'm going to be teaching you how to make a custom wall or fencing kit with multiple interchangeable parts and custom physics shapes. So to start, let's begin with what the hell a physics shape is. um, A physics shape is an invisible mesh being used as the hitbox of an item, only really used for items that are being rezzed. So if you're making an item like a crown or, I don't know, a wearable wall that goes down your back like a spine, you're not going to need this. However, if you're going to be making something such as a house or a bridge, you're going to need to be able to define what parts you can walk through, what parts you can walk on, what you can and cannot phase through like a ghost, that kind of thing. And that's what a physics shape will help you define. They're rather easy to make. In a lot of cases, it's like a secondary mesh. I'm not the best with physics shapes. However, I hope that someone I know will even teach me how to do it in their fancy way, because their way is black magic. Uh, However, they are very useful for when you start making structures. So let me go ahead and pop open Blender and pop on my screencast keys for you guys. And we'll start making a wall or fence so I can use that to show you how to start up uh, your physics mesh. Let's set this to the image editor because we'll come back to that. All right, and start display. I'm going to turn this up for you guys. I need to remember to do this before I start recording, but I mean, whatever. Okay, that should hopefully be large enough for you guys to see and for those watching the recording to see. Wow, that's huge. Whatever. So let's go into orthographic view with 5 because that's where I work best. And 3, there we go. All right, so whenever building a structure for Second Life, your topology is everything. You need to watch it so closely and minimize it as much as you can. Because if you don't, it can vastly impact your land impact. And of course, the number one goal for anything is a land impact of 1. However, not everything can get that low. But we gonna try. So I'm gonna start my fence or wall with adding a subdivision modifier to my cube here. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I want to turn it into a cylinder, because I want this to be where the posts or pillars between each of my walls or fences is going to be. Now the mirroring modifier for this lesson is going to be a little bit odd because we're not going to be mirroring over the same axis that we usually do. So I'm going to move this up to create our pillar. And then let's see if using our crease will set that how we want. It does. Good. So let's go ahead and crease this bottom part here and press F to give it a face. So we've got our pillar. I want to put on top of our pillar a cute little lantern because I think it'll look nice. So let's go ahead and add a small little lantern up here. I'm going to just extrude from this because I want it to be a part of this. You don't always have to do this. This is just how I'm choosing to do my lantern. And luckily, every time I'm extruding here, it's moving up on the right axis. So I'm getting lucky with that. And I'm just adding a little bit of detail. Not sure what the hell kind of detail I'm adding, but it's a detail. That's a detail. Now, as you've probably noticed, I don't explain quite as much as I used to in a lot of my lessons because I'm wanting you guys to learn how to do a lot of this on your own because these are all things that I've gone over already. And I would like for you guys to learn how to recognize what I'm doing using the either what's going on screen or using the steps as shown in the screencast keys that you can see. Because it's really easy to find out once you've had a bit of experience by going through my previous lessons what's going on. Of course, if something I'm doing is too fast, you can always let me know. You can always ask me questions. I'm here. Don't be afraid to ask me questions. I may be busy, but I'm not too busy to help you. So now I'm just going to, so I'm just extruding here in order to give my lantern a bit of dimension. Looks a little funny, but we'll fix that because I don't want that rounded. I'm just selecting, let's actually go into face select. That'll make this easier on me. I'm just selecting a face, extruding, shrinking, and then extruding. And we're gonna fix these so they're less rounded in a moment. This is a much more manual way of making this nice and neat. However, I do not feel the need to make it all perfect. However, there are ways using mirror modifiers and whatnot that you can make this extremely perfected and fine-tuned to the point where every single piece on this lantern is precisely placed. It's just all using mirror modifier. So now I'm just going to these individual faces and increasing my crease. Now I think I'm going to go into edge select and select all these little side edges here and increase my crease and see what that does. There we go. That's the look we want. There's a little bit of clipping, which I'll fix for now. And the reason I'm focusing on like straightening all of this using my creases is because it doesn't impact the topology of the item at all. If I were to sit here and so I can do Control R and move this down here and then Control R, move this up here, and it has the same impact. However, I've just increased my topology by quite a lot. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to focus on what I can modify using my crease that will allow me to get the look that I want. Because that crease is damn useful. So now I'm going to go into my faces and I'm actually going to select all of my inner faces here. And I'm going to do two things. First off, I'm going to go into, let's see, yeah, pivot point. Let's go into pivot point and set it as individual origins. This means I'll be shrinking all of the faces on their own. You see, I could even do Alt S, which would shrink in another way, which I don't think I want to do that. So I'm just going to shrink these down. Try to focus on getting them to not be intersecting here. Might increase the size of these actually and just move them out. There we go. Oh, a lot of toying around in Blender. Let's move this one forwards. Nope, that's to the side, I think. Nope. That way. These don't technically need to be super perfect. They'll look the same whether you've made them super perfect or not. It still looks like a wonderful lantern. But now I'm going to select all the faces again. And this time we're going to, yes, early on, we're going to add a extra face. So I got to be in object mode, I think. Add new. I'm going to make this yellow to count as like a warm white. So now that's going to have a nice yellow kind of tone to it, just to help me visualize what I'm doing. I don't like this top here, so I'm going to select these edges, turn up the crease, because I feel like it would look better not rounded out. Yeah, that's a lot better. Now down here, I'm going to be careful with my crease, because I don't want to crease the entirety of the pillar here. So I'm going to view from a front view, and I'm going to use my box select and deselect these here. Actually, I kind of want to deselect a bit more, like these, at least. There we go. Now let's turn up my crease. There is a nice looking lantern. Nothing fancy, just a lantern. But this is going to be our main pillar. So let's go ahead and fancify it a little bit. I'm going to add a couple of loop cuts because what I'm doing can't be done using crease. And then I'm going to tap E. Oh, that did not do what I wanted. Let's go back into vertex select. There we go. Now I can see all of it turned orange there, which means I have all of it selected. And let's tap E and then Alt S. I might need to change my pivot point because that was not working right. Alt S. Here we go. Yeah, so if things aren't quite working right, sometimes your pivot point is the thing to check. Let's add a little dimension to our pillar. So I like how it curves in like that, but just for the sake of crease, because I can, I'm going to go ahead and turn up the crease on these because I know some people are probably going to prefer it this way. So just showing how you can do that. So we have our pillar. This can be exported all on its own as a separate piece for your wall. And honestly, it wouldn't be bad to have as part of your kit. Just the separated pillar. You can even go in and actually, well, thinking, you can cut it in special places where you know if you mirror it, you'll be able to minimize the texture space you're using when you UV map it. So I could UV map just this one side here that I have selected, and then use my mirror modifier to duplicate this all the way around and still have the same shape, but I only have to texture this one side. Actually, why don't I show that? That sounds like a good thing to show. So I'm going to go ahead and go down here because the way I want to do this, I did 7 then 9. The way I want to do this is, let's go ahead and remove this face, and then I'll extrude, right click to keep in the same place, Alt M at center. There we go. I want to be able to cut this in a certain way so that I can duplicate just that side. So looking back at the bottom again, I'm focusing on one triangle here on the bottom. Anything else that's not on that triangle, face-wise, I want to not have selected. There we go. Oh, 7, 9, there we go. So let's go ahead and actually, I feel box selecting could be useful here. Yeah, there we go. Now our top here is doing the same thing. So I'm going to just select this. I know it removed my selection. Alt M at center, and that'll give me that point that I want. Now let's go back to here, and I'm just going to box select because it appears that if I box select, none of this is really going to get in my way. So I'm going to P selection. Let's go ahead and just select the other part here and hide it. Now I can UV map this. Wow, that makes that a really comprehensive UV. There's no need to straighten any of this out, by the way. If you were to use W to straighten these out, which I know some people may be tempted to do, that is going to cause texture stretching because of some of the radical differences in shape in a lot of these parts. I've seen people try to straighten out stuff like this. You do not need to worry about stuff like that. So now, time to learn how bad I am with angles. So select all and then Shift S. Let's put our cursor in the center here because I want to rotate around our origin. So I'm going to set my pivot point as the cursor, which is where our origin should be. Because remember, Shift S cursor to center before adding any new mesh. So center your cursor before new mesh. And this is why you always want your origin for where your mesh came into the scene to be centralized. So now I'm going to add my mirror modifier. And I'm not going to have just X enabled, but I'm also going to enable Y. And I'm going to rotate, going counterclockwise. So I'm going to type in negative, or just dash 45. Oh my god, it's back. So we're going to add clipping, just because I want to make sure nothing goes past the center. And I'm just going to touch this up because I feel like there's a little bit not sitting precisely how I want. Just want to be sure that it's all connected and we don't have anything there, see? Anything doing that. Because if we leave it, we have the chance of getting a mav block error, which is a goddamn difficult error to get rid of and identify. So I'm just making sure this is all connected so we don't have any floating pieces when this is done. I'm going to move my mirror modifier above my subdivide. And we've gotten this back. Now I can see I've accidentally messed up a part of the lantern here. So let's go ahead and select this part that I've ruined. Turn off my clipping. And set our pivot point back to median. There we go. And just move it away from the edges. Fix what I've destroyed. Because did you know I'm bad at this? There we go. Fixed what I destroyed. Now, well, now of course this is what I was talking about earlier with it making all the edges the same. We did it. But also, our UV is now amazingly comprehensive. You can see what you're doing. So let's go back into our one view. So I don't like this being at an angle for us to be working on. Well, yeah, I guess let's leave it at an angle. It adds dimension. Ooh. So I'm turning on my clipping because I decided I don't like how wide that is. There. So let's work on our fence and our wall. I'm going to actually build them on opposite sides here, just so we can see what they look like alongside our lantern. So let's Shift S, cursor to center, add mesh. I'm going to add, let's build our wall first. So I'm going to add a cube. Then we're going to scoot it over. Now, this is where I was saying our mirror modifier is going to get a little bit odd. because we're not going to be mirroring over the x-axis like we usually do. We're mirroring over the y. This is because we're building out to the sides and need to have our front view easily identified as the front. So I'm going to remove our side face here, just using X faces, because that's all that I want to remove is the face. And you'll see our y-axis mirroring is there. I'm just making sure that my clipping is on. And we're going to make this wall rather thick. I'm going to move it out a bit. Just kind of think about exactly how long I want my wall to be, how tall I want it to be. I'll put my wall up to here. Yeah, up to there. And then I'm going to bring this out and maybe follow the grid. I don't know. Can I hold control? Yeah, so if I hold control, it'll snap to the grid. Not precisely, always, but it gives you something more precise to work with. So now, I could go on ahead and add a bunch of edges and move them all around, make them into rocks. That is something you could do. Or I could use something called a bump map to add a bunch of stones or bricks to my wall and make them look 3D. Now a bump map or normals are something that will simply impact how the light will hit your model. Even on a flat surface, you can make it look extremely detailed. But for the sake of this, because this is a mesh class and I'll get into bump maps later, I'm going to do the terrible thing. And I'm going to make a few bricks in this wall, or thick stones. So I'm going to select some of these at random here. Okay, not as random as I'd like, but it's random. I'm going to go E, and I'm going to set this to individual origins. Shrink. That is not doing what I want. So E, shrink. My cat is grunting at me. And then, so I've got parts here that are sticking together in a way that I don't want. So I can just tap on those, tap V, right click, V, right click, and just kind of separate it until you're basically just playing with this area until it gives you the vertex you want. So, there we go. That's one thing that I want, and I'll move that up here. V. Because since these don't need to be so perfect, you want to give it a natural look. It really doesn't matter if what you're doing is insanely precise. S0, enter, and then select these vertices, S0, enter. Nope. Because I have it set to fucking individual origins. Fun. There we go. Set it back to median, and now it's working. So now I can select all and just remove doubles. I'm gonna go through and separate all these. Let's see what happens if I do this. Nope, that didn't like me. There we go. Alt M at center is another way to handle the merging. These right here are connected, so let's V, move them to the sides. I'll just tap F. That set those how I wanted. Let's move that because I feel like that edge is a little thick. Sometimes I have to tap Z to make sure that I'm touching the vertex that I want. There we go. Now remember, the way I'm making sure I'm touching the vertex that I want is I'm watching these yellow, orange kind of gradients that are coming off of the vertices here. Because it tells you exactly what you have connected, or have selected, and tells you exactly what edges these vertices are connected to. I only have 2 more to go. Now, a lot of parts in Blender like this can get really tedious. And I know it can be really discouraging. Good thing I'm not an English teacher, right? It can be rather discouraging to know you have to go through something so tedious. But the payoff of seeing what you've made come to life in a 3D world, in my opinion, is always worth it. And last one up here. And as you can tell, that did not take very long to set up. There we go. Just make sure I have all that. Yep. Alrighty. So now that's selected and set. So let's go on ahead, just so I don't have to do that again, I'm going to make sure I don't have any that are, when I do my faces, I want to make sure I don't really have any that are connected when I select these. Let's see if these do the corner thing again. It sure as hell does. So let's go on ahead and do that. And then we're going to go back to individual origins. Shrink that down. And all this is doing is giving our wall a little bit of dimension. So it's not just a prim. I double selected that one, that's fun. And see, I personally enjoy the look of all of these being kind of uneven. If you wanted to make these a little further uneven, you could even go in and in proportional editing, select vertices, and just kind of tilt them around. I feel like it's a cute kind of stylized look. Funky looking wall. I like it. So now we have our wall with a lantern. Now I want to add a version of our wall that has some decor on it. So I'm going to do unwrap before making any edits because of variations. And so this unwrap is actually fine. I like this. This looks good. It's easy to tell what's going on. It's easy to see where the individual sections are. And it's easy to shade. So now I'm going to go into this part here. Let's actually do a whole section here. I'm going to select a decent little bit of this in like a little plus shape here. We're going to remove it. Actually, forgot almost a very important part. I'm going to duplicate this first. and right click to keep it in the same place. So if I press G, you can see we have another one. And I'm actually going to press M and move it to a different layer. Now, these layers are found down here. You can have different layers for different pieces of your project. Both of these little tables down at the bottom here where you see my mouse, all of them are different layers. So I can have my layer with just my original wall, and then I can work on this wall separately without ruining my original wall, which means I will now have two versions of this exact wall. And since I just UV mapped it, this wall will have the same textures, or will take the same textures as the one that I have just removed. So I'm going to select all of this with Alt right click, and I'm going to extrude on the Y axis until it hits the center. I've got this cool little center piece here, and I'm going to Shift S cursor to center and add some cubes, or a cube. And I'm going to add just some wooden planks in here, because why not? It might look neat. Just to give the wall a bit of a window, because for whatever reason, walls get windows sometimes. They're not exactly functional as windows, so I'm not sure why they use walls for windows. But you know, it looks neat, you know? And because our wall's a little funky, I'm actually going to rotate these a little. Keep up that kind of funky look. Because I want you guys to understand, not everything has to be exact. Not everything has to be super precise when you place it. Something can still look incredible without being insanely precisely placed. And there we go. So now I have to make sure these aren't crossing each other weird. So let's shrink it down a little and remove, let's start by going to our side view and removing this back face. Because I only want to have to texture one side of this. We're going to mirror on our y-axis, move out, turn on clipping, move in until we get about the thickness we want. Great. So I'm going to select these two panels here and move them. Well, change where they are. I just did P select and detach them basically. And now I'm gonna, well, let's UV map these first. We have our perfect little boards here. So now I can apply my mirror and just scoot them forwards so that they aren't attached to the other boards. And if I wanted, I could even go in and add, let's actually do that. Let's add some little bolts here in order to, let's go add mesh cube. We'll add cute little bolts here in order to make it look like these are connected. Now, I don't want to add a subdivide modifier here in order to round out these little nails or bolts or whatever I have in here. So instead, I'm going to use Control R to loop cut this. And then I'm going to scale on two separate axes. And you can't see it from that angle, but that is now rounded out. Let's actually go ahead and assign a different face to that so we can see it a little bit better. Just going to use our yellow one that we have. Now we can see that a little better. Now I can duplicate this. Actually, before duplicating, let's UV map it. So if I unwrap it right now, it doesn't do anything. But if I decide where I want this to cut, which I'll just cut it there. Control E, and then mark seam, and I'll go ahead and cut it here and here. There we go. And I'll go ahead and Control V to relax it. Shrink it down, and we'll throw that to the side for now. We're gonna go in after all of this UV mapping and go ahead and merge it all together into one UV so that when you put your wall in world, it will save on texture space, meaning you'll need one texture instead of 20. So we've got our funky looking wall here, but we've also got our other version. So I'll go ahead and scoot this over just real quick so you can see. So I'm going to show you a neat little trick to use for walls, outdoors walls and fences that will really help with placing them in world. Because when placing a wall or a fence in world, it can be a little bit of a pain when you go to rotate it and it rotates on a centralized axis here. So let me set this to bounding box. Is that? No. Well, in the end, we want it to turn like this. But if I were to bring this in world right now, it wouldn't do that at all. The way I can make sure that it does that, however, is I'm going to select this wall here, and I'm going to add another mirror modifier. The reason I'm doing another one is because this one's going to be used very differently. And yes, I want it on the x-axis. I'm going to turn off merge, and then I'm going to select apply. Now that I've got that over there, I'm going to select my whole wall on this side, and I'm going to pick one of the furthest out faces here. Let's do this one here. Let's do face select. That makes sense. I'm going to go X vertices. Oh, nope, X faces. Because I want this to stay here. And now I'm going to shrink this way down. Now we don't want it too small or it'll map block error. So remember, if you go to upload this and you start getting a map block error, to watch your face size here. But I'm going to shrink this way down. And what that's going to let me do, I'm actually going to Control F and flip normals as well. So you can't really see it now, can you? I think in some cases, actually, it's a good idea to even rotate it so the face that's visible is going to be aimed down. Maybe shrink it a little more. You want it to be aimed away where no one's going to see it. And what you're doing here is you're increasing the size of the bounding box of, or the, what Secondlife is going to count as the bounding box for your item. And it will rotate in world like so. Because the centralized area is going to be way out that way. So, or going to be in here, and you've got your extra little space out this way. So, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this, P selection, and attach it to my other wall here. Let's go ahead and attach it to the boards. Well, no, let's attach it to these boards. No, because I don't want a mirror modifier on it. So let's attach it to these boards for now. And that way, it'll attach to the other wall once we have it done. So I'm going to deselect our other wall, label here, and let's go ahead and UV map our first wall. So this part's already done. We do not want to re-UV map this because we want it to take the texture of the other wall. So now let's just apply our modifiers here. Join with Control J. And we've got our whole wall here. So obviously we have UV maps overlapping. So we're going to move these around our scene, or around our UV map. I'm going to rotate 90 degrees on this one. And we're going to make sure that it all fits within the same texture space here. I want to make sure nothing's really touching all that close. So we've got our boards here, we got our bolts here, we got our wall here. And there is our wall texture. That will work for both walls that we have. Now, we also have this. And since this is so small, if I wanted, I could actually add it to here. So let me shrink down our wood a little bit more. Don't laugh. And then I want to move these off the screen for a moment. Rotate 90. And I'm going to put my wood up here. Stop laughing. There we go. So I'm going to actually make that a little wider so that it'll take the textures a little better. And let's box select this. Rotate 90. And do the same thing. Because all I'm doing is I'm moving these around in a way where once I put my lantern on here, it'll fit. And I'm gonna shove this in here. So let's apply our modifiers on our lantern. And for the time being, I'm gonna join these together, but they're not gonna stay that way. So now I'm gonna take my lantern. I'll rotate it 90 degrees. Actually, I'll put it at an angle here because that'll give me more texture space to work with. Less pixelating. Wow. English. This is why I shouldn't drink wine while I'm teaching. I mean, you didn't hear that. Here we go. So, now I have our lantern, which will rotate central on a central axis. We have our wall, which will rotate on a central axis. Our other wall, which will rotate on a centralized axis. So let's go ahead and let's bring the simple wall here and our lantern in world. So I'm going to upload these separately because this wall, so physics mesh. This is where it gets a little bit odd. So this wall, because it's so square, we don't need to make a full custom physics mesh for it. But if I were to say, let's make a version of this wall that has a doorway real quick before we upload these. Let's add a cute little doorway in here, just a walkway. So let's turn this into an arch. Just because I want to make sure we have a good comprehensive show of what this is going to do. Oh, that's what I was looking for. So let's go ahead and I'm going to make this a rather wide walkway here. Just because I think it'd be cool. And then X faces. Oh, I missed a part here. X vertices. There we go. And then we've still got a mirror modifier on this. So I don't want these two down here to extrude because I'll fix that in a moment. But I'm still going to extrude on a y-axis until they connect. And then this part here. I'm gonna fill in. So we've got our walkway area here. So all three of these walls, if I wanted to, because they're going to take the same physics mesh each, because physics mesh will not apply to all items together. It will take one mesh that you have, one physics item that you have, and apply that particular physics to each separate item as you upload. You don't want to take a 5-piece, I don't know, playground that you have in separate links and try to upload all of that with all of its physics mesh together, because it'll apply all of the physics mesh to each individual piece, meaning your swing is going to have the physics mesh for your slide. Weird. You want to upload either, in this case, things that are going to all take the same physics mesh. Actually, I can't do that with this one. You want to upload things that will all take the same physics mesh together if you want to upload things together, or you're going to have to upload them all separately. So I'm going to take our two walls here. We're going to export as a DAE. I'm going to put mine on my desktop. I'm going to do selection only down here in my options. I'm going to apply modifiers in case there was anything I forgot. And that's all I really need. So desktop, export. So let's go ahead and build, upload mesh model here. I didn't even title it. Wow, professional. So you don't see them split apart, and that's fine. You don't need to see them that way. Oh, you know, I just had a thought. Hold on. These actually do need a custom physics mesh because we don't want our physics mesh to stretch to this, because we want this space here to be walkable in. I forgot about that. So while I fail at being professional, let's go ahead and Shift S, cursor to center, and add a cube for our physics mesh. And we are just going to attempt to line this up roughly with our wall. I'm going to actually hold control, which is a rare thing that I never do while moving. Oh, that's not going to line up. And I'm just lining this up with our wall here so that when it applies in world, it will have the right dimensions. Okay, there we go. So this is, again, what people can and cannot walk through. So that we're defining the area that people are going to be bumping into should they run into this wall. And then, because if we don't change this, it's going to stretch all the way out to the other end of our mesh here. I'm going to duplicate this face here, shrink it way the hell down, and there it is. Actually, I could just duplicate this. Selection, and take my little piece here. There we go, the one that's on its own. That's the one that I want. And I'm going to find our wall. Where did it go? Did I remove it? I might have accidentally removed our wall. I removed our prim. Huh? Death to me. Alright, let's remake our wall. Actually, in fact, to make it more precise, you know what I could do? I could select this edge up here and the piece over here that I want, and I'll go ahead and shift duplicate those. Selection. There we go. That's what I want to be in edit mode on. So I'll take this, bring it out to here, and extrude out to here. And then I want to remove all of our edges, all of our extra edges that we don't want. So I'm just going to Alt right click on them and select edge loops when I tap X. Nope, that's not going to turn out well. And I'm basically just turning this into a box that is going to be the exact bounding space of the edges of our wall. I'm saying a lot of not technical words here, but that's okay. You'll understand what I mean. So that's going to be our physics mesh. That. So let's go ahead and export. Actually, I should not use Avastar export, which I'm very used to using on desktop, and do wall physics. And then we're going to export our two walls again, this time with a name. I'm not touching the settings down here anymore because now that I've set them, they're fine. Walls. And then, while I'm in here, let's go ahead and duplicate our physics and move it to a different layer because I want to make the physics for this. So, let's select our physics shape here. And you'll notice I'm going into wireframe a lot because I need to see through things. And I'm just going to add loop cuts and give an approximate location for where these are because a physics mesh does not need to be exactly where your mesh comes out. It definitely does not need to be exactly where. All it does is it needs to make your mesh able to function. So like when someone makes stairs, for example, their physics mesh will literally just be a ramp. Otherwise, you go bunk, 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 bunk up the stairs, and it's annoying. So let's export. I keep pressing Avastar. Export default. And we're going to go wall arch. And then export default. We're going to go wall. Or no. We're going to go arch physics. And it may seem a little odd to export these separately, but that's because it's going to replace where we previously used to put cubes in world. So I'm going to go build, upload, mesh model. This might be massive, so I might destroy the entire classroom. Fair warning. So let's go ahead and upload our walls. Let's actually attempt to destroy Sev with this. Kill two birds with one stone, or at least one Sev with a stone wall. Or C. And so I'm going to set this to 1. We're going to, because this is a resed item, our physics, or LOD here, is going to be a little different. So we're going to use LOD above. We'll see it's accounting for these end numbers here. And then for low, I'm going to do half of this. So that's going to be 6, 3, 1. I don't know. I am not a math major. And then this is where we put in under the physics tab here. This is where we put in the physics model or the physics mesh. So I'm going to choose from file, browse on my desktop, and we're going to put our wall physics. And you'll see, you can't, wow, seizure warning, Jesus. Yep. I'm not sure why it does that, but it's showing the physics mesh of everything around me as I go to rotate around this. But you'll see there's kind of a blue line in there, and that's showing you where your physics mesh or bounding box is. I look terrifying. Enjoy wireframe day. So it says physics mesh too dense. So that means that this little piece here is a little too small. So let's go edit our physics mesh here. Actually, I wonder what would happen if we made it just a vertex. Actually, that's the wrong vertex anyways, so that's the vertex that I want. So now let's export as physics mesh, wall physics. No, wait. That was the arch one that I did. Whoops. There's my wall physics. You can see how structure building can get confusing. There we go. Export my habits. So let's export default wall physics. And let's go on ahead and browse and change our walls physics. Now, see, because I did a vertex, it didn't want to work properly. So you can see our cube that we had there kind of stretched all the way across. This wall just technically doubled in size, but half of it's invisible. Fun. So let's bring this back. And I'm going to increase the size of this piece here. It's going to take a little bit of playing around with. Happy that I'm making mistakes though, because it shows you how to handle this if you end up making the same mistakes. So now that we don't have the words right here stating that it was too dense, we can now calculate and upload. Let's see. Oh, land impact 56. Okay, that's aggressive. That's probably because the way that I built it in world is gigantic. So let's go to upload options and do 0.1 and then calculate. Oh, that uploaded. All right. Well, let's see if it's gigantic. You ready? Let's destroy Sev. Can't. Hold on. Need to wear teacher tag. Part of lesson. Make sure you have the right tag on. Extra credit. Coming soon. There we go. Little bitty wall. And I did not upload these properly, but we have our little walls. Shut up, Seb. Changing the happy little walls. Let's go ahead, since I made them so small, let's go ahead and slap these on my desk. Kind of happy they uploaded so small. These are cute. So since these are 7 land impact, they'll need some playing around with. However, you can see how they rotate around a pillar instead of around their centralized location. So if I were to take a prim and rotate it, that's what I mean by a centralized location. That makes it kind of a bitch to put walls up around whatever kind of landscaping you're setting up. However, if it were to rotate around a pillar or around the area you're trying to put it in, it makes it really easy to just make a nice, detailed landscaping with walls without having to worry about some of the garbage, uh, some of the garbage kind of mechanics of Second Life. So let's go ahead and delete these, and now I'll show you. Delete, damn it. Oh, I'm in edit linked mode. Lesson 5. So now let's show you the archway. And students, once I have this set up, you can feel free to come walk through it because I'm sure you'll probably be tempted. That's okay. You can walk through the archway. I trust you. So, let's take the vertex that I ruined on our archway here off. And I'll go find my physics mesh for this. Duplicate our little friend here. Yep. And move him to the proper layer. Here we go. That physics mesh is fixed. So let's go on ahead and export to... I'm sorry if you hear crying in the background. My cat doesn't like that the door is closed. Angry cat. So, let's upload our arch. So I'm actually... let's test physics. Or let's test land impact. I'm actually not going to touch these this time, and we'll see what happens. Let's go from File, Browse, and then Arch Physics. And we can see that we will in fact have a working walk space here because there's no blue in this space here. I don't have the red here telling me I did something wrong. And I'm going to do 0.5 this time because I want it to be a little bigger so you guys can go have fun with the arch. Land impact 0.7. That's good land impact. And now we have our walkway. And this too, because of what we did, rotates. Oh my god, Sev's coming over to fucking... Alright, hold on. I know it's so short. But also you're tall. So, in order to get your physics to properly show, by the way, you need to go into... or to properly work, you need to go into... what was it? I do believe it is this, and set it to prim. It's either prim or convex hull so that it'll work properly. Prim? Alright, well, thanks. Fucking teacher's pet. Go walk through the arch. Oh wait, you're too tall still. Gross. And my physics will change with however I end up... I don't have it selected. I do now. The physics will change with however I end up adjusting the mesh. However, if I turn this on... oh wow, it did not take the physics that I gave it. Interesting. Apply params. No? Question mark? Because typically I haven't had to. Well, I didn't export with Avastar. I know you can use it to export static things, but I don't like to use Avastar in the lessons unless the lesson takes Avastar. Apply lock rot scale. Okay. So, troubleshooting. Live troubleshooting. Go. So, let's go down to object, apply. Do they have lock rot and scale? Let's do rotation and scale, and then object, apply, location. And I'll do it to this just to be sure. There we go. So wall arch, and then arch physics. That I need to... There we go. That was weird. Let's set this down to 1. Physics from file. Browse. Arch physics. So it's fine in the viewer, which is good. I should not need to mess with any of this. Let's calculate. Upload. Still a nice low land impact. Let's set it to prim under the Features tab. And it seems my physics are still upset. Strange. It could be the resizing I've done in the uploader, yeah, maybe. Let's try uploading it without resizing, because that is weird. I wonder if resizing makes it recalculate the physics and removes what I've put there. Good to know. So I'm not going to do any manual resizing in this then. We'll try that again. Sometimes that just makes it work. Welcome to Second Life, where sometimes just pressing a button will kind of make it work. Not going to touch that. Upload. Like magnets. They just work. And prim. There we go. Yeah, I don't know which one it was, but that was definitely it. I absolutely refused to use Avastar export. There you go, Sev. Have fun. Kind of happy that was in there. Shows some good troubleshooting that you can do. So, Archway. Have fun with that. And you can see, since you can see the blue with this little eye that I have here, that as I adjust it, so does the physics adjust. Which is nice. So just don't do any manual resizing. Lesson learned. Or don't do any of the importer resizing. And let's see, how long has it been? Because I do have another thing to teach if this hasn't been too long. For an hour, huh? You guys want to learn a bridge? I think we want to learn a bridge. Because that has some slightly more complicated physics. So, good time to call. Restricted number. Not answering that. So let's add mesh cube. I'm going to go solidify and subdivide. And I'm going to remove these bottom vertices here. Guess I could have just put a plane, but I'm too tired for that today. Let's go ahead and thicken this. I'm going to make an arched bridge. There we go. So I'm going to, in fact, add a mirror modifier, and I'm actually going to do X and Y. Move this out. Let's make sure our bridge is fairly wide so it's actually able to be walked on. And on this entire section here, I'm going to adjust my crease. Make sure this is set to smooth. And that doesn't seem to quite be creasing how I want. There we go. And then let's go ahead and add an extra thing here so it will straighten out as I'd like. Nah, this way. Ah, but this way adds less topology. Ah. And I'm going to add a crease here because I want that to kind of flatten out. So now let's add some pillars. Let's add our cute little pillar right here to our bridge. Let's remove doubles. Nope, okay, thought I saw doubles there. So let's go ahead and move this to another layer. There's our bridge. And we're gonna add a few of these to our bridge. I'm gonna shrink them down. And I'm going to take this here, duplicate it, separate it, and then I'm going to do Alt-C, curve from mesh. And that has taken our exact curve here from the bridge and turned it into a curve that I can use. Let's remove the extra ones here. It's turned it into a curve that I can use to put things like our thing onto. So let's go ahead and add a array. And I don't know how many I want on this. This will be a fairly short bridge. Let's do 4. And then I'm going to make them fairly spaced. And we're going to add a curve. Obviously, I'm using the only curve that currently exists. Oh, man. Those look nuts. This one's fine. Let's go ahead and edit our curve. Let's scoot these in. They're not quite sitting in a great way. So let's increase our spacing here. Man, sometimes curves are not fun. Sometimes. But a little bit of messing with, they can be just fine. It's kind of cute that they're tilted like that, kind of like that. So now let's just add mesh-wise a couple of cubes right here and make kind of a railing. And I'm going to array this and connect it to the same curve. It might turn out looking a little odd, but let's see. Nope, that's fine. Alrighty. So, since it's so long, let's shrink that in a little. And we're going to increase the count, not by a lot, but this is basically just a interesting way of subdividing it. And I'm going to remove these faces on the ends here and select merge. So it'll merge each part of the railing as I need it. So I kind of like I do kind of like how it sits on the bottom there. So I'm going to select this top part here of the railing, make it a little taller. Yeah. And then I'm going to duplicate it and lift it and make that on the z-axis a little less tall. And I'm going to add manually some little supports in areas after we make sure this goes across properly. There we go. Now I can go on ahead and apply, and we have our railing here. Now I can go in and adjust some of the topology here manually to make sure that it's not too high of land impact, because in some cases that can happen where you've done a fun trick like this and the land impact is just not having a good time, in which case removing like this and going edge loops can sometimes be your best friend. And just removing all the almost unnecessary parts of the railing. Especially considering I want to manually add some supports here, so I'm going to need space for that extra topology. Here we go. So let's go X faces, and then go W bridge. Don't you wish you could W bridge everything? Let's go ahead and add another one here. And I want to add one up here somewhere. So I'm going to regretfully add some loop cuts. Shame on me. And bridge. So we've got our bridge. We do need to mirror this stuff to the other side. And I think I might end up adjusting these lanterns. So let's go ahead and apply things. You know what? Let's not apply that mirror just yet. But I'm going to remove these because they didn't quite turn out how I expected. Let's go ahead and duplicate these up like this. I'm just going to take this bottom part here, tilt it, and move it down. And then let's duplicate it, move it across, and I'm just going to scale on this axis and do -1 and Control N. And that just mirrored it for me without me having to go through using a modifier. That looks better. So now, time to figure out the physics mesh, because this is going to have a much more complicated physics mesh. Actually, let's go ahead and add, well, no. I was going to add wood planks on this, but you could just put a wood plank texture, which would save you land impact. So let's go ahead and UV map. Let's actually remove doubles just in case. Okay. So let's UV map our railing here. I'm going to, let's see what this does. Unwrap. That's not usable. So let's add a loop cut to every centralized section on this railing, because we're going to cut it straight down the center. E, mark seam. Now let's unwrap. Better. I suppose some of the parts of this are rather thin, so that should be usable. So we have that, and let's go ahead and UV map this, which I'm going to apply some things here. Ooh, that did not apply well. Here we go. Let's go ahead and cut it in half because I don't want to have to worry about things not lining up. And Control V to relax our UV. Just a little. I don't want it too much. And now I can apply my mirror. Join it to this. Oh wow, that's inside out. Let's do Control N. There we go. And we'll move our bridge platform up. And then we already have our texture for this, so, or our thing for this. So let's apply our mirror, join them together. That's also inside out now for whatever reason. So Control N, which is just recalculate normals or make them consistent. And then we will let's double check to make sure things are looking right. Okay. So now I'm going to actually shrink this down a little, just a little, so that our lantern texture still works. And I'm going to put our bridge parts on a different face because since the, oh, it's already on a different face. Good. Because since the lantern itself has its own UV from somewhere else, we don't want it to conflict. We want to be able to put that other UV on this because if we have our walls in world, people are already going to be loading that texture. So by reusing a part like this, we're saving some texture loading space. So now we have our bridge. Let's export Collada bridge. Now to make the physics mesh. So I'm going to make it from some of the parts of this. So I'm going to take this piece here. Actually, I'm going to take this so that it's centralized. I'm going to duplicate. And this right here, which I will make another color so that's easier to see, is going to become our physics mesh. So let's go ahead and widen this to about the size of our bridge. And then remove any unnecessary topology from flattened areas. Because this topology does impact what's going to be calculated for your land impact. Now, because I expect this part to be somewhat on the ground, I'm actually going to take, let's take this part here on our physics, and I'm going to just scoot it side to side a little by double tapping G to give it, I forgot a part, to give it a bit of a ramp. And what this is going to do is, while it doesn't follow our mesh exact, it's going to make it easier for avatars to walk up onto that part of the bridge. So then I'm going to cut in the center because I want that on both sides. I'm going to add a mirror modifier to y-axis. Take it off the x-axis because we don't need it on that. Now we have a ramp on both sides. And then I'm going to go back to changing the topology, which I'm not sure we need to change too much because we did keep the bridge very low poly for the most part. There we go. And I just selected, or I just set all of those faces on that side. So let's go ahead and do it again over here. go. So we have our faces set. You don't have to worry about the UV map of a physics mesh, at least not until later when I get Sev to teach me his black magic. So now I'm going to control R like so. Maybe I'll do it here too. And I'm actually, you know what? No, I do want this to do on the x-axis. Because this, we are going to extrude. I'm actually going to put this out in a weird angle for right now because I want to make sure that I can select this down here and remove it. And then I'll go on ahead and take this part, and on that axis I'm going to do 0 and remove doubles because I want to minimize my usage of topology. So let's add clipping, and I'm going to set this up so it lines up with our railing. And this is so people don't fall off your bridge. You need to stupid proof your bridges because some people don't realize there's death if you leave part of it. Like Sev. He doesn't realize. We have to stupid proof all of Ruby's bridges. Now, I could, but don't have to, add physics for the lanterns. But I don't really need to, considering the railing is already going to be stopping people from bumping into them too much. Unless someone somehow manages to precariously balance themselves on the railing. In which case, congratulations, you deserve to be a ghost in lanterns. The reason why I'm not doing this is not purely because of laziness. Yes, that's part of it. But also because the more physics I have, the more topology my mesh will have. And I don't always need to worry about having a bunch of physics on a bunch of my mesh that people aren't really going to be too worried about if they phase through. So let's go ahead and take our physics mesh here and export it. Do bridge. Physics. Alrighty, now let's upload it. And let's go ahead and do bridge. DAE parsing issue. See log for details. Let's see what I did wrong, which is probably a lot. Let's go to the log. Show detailed logging. And nothing's there. Good job. Good job. So let's take a peek at my bridge. See what's wrong with this. Could it be dense topology? Could it be... Not quite sure. But I do see that I can remove some of the topology here. So let's go ahead and do that while I'm peeking at things, because who knows, that might fix it. Is it on my railing? Let's go ahead and hide my physics mesh for now with H. And let's see if it's on my railing. I don't see anything that would cause any problems, so now I'm just confused. Let's try re-exporting. Oh, wait. What is this? Well, oh, okay. I didn't apply the mirror of my railing before attaching it to the bridge. So, let's remove this mirror, apply it to my railing. So there was a bunch of overlapping topology because of that. Smart. All right. Export default. Bridge. Bridge. Why? And why won't you tell me what I've done wrong? Is it the lanterns? So let's go ahead and detach these lanterns. And see if that's where the problem is. It sure is. All right, so for the sake of the lesson, I'm going to just leave the lanterns off for now, and we're going to upload the bridge on its own. Because I plan on teaching better lanterns later anyways. So, let's go bridge of physics. Why does that have an issue? Why does everything have problems today? I think I'm having a bad day. Maybe. What are bad days? Is it maybe the triangles? Is that what's causing problems? Could be. Gonna do that, because that could be one of the things. I feel like it's the triangles. So I'm gonna split this. I'm gonna get rid of the triangle part of this. P.S. Blender's touchy. Blender and Secondlife, actually. I forgot that was why I had that triangle there. So, let's do this. And then move those in. Remove doubles. Edge loops. So I fixed that. I have a triangle here. So let's go ahead and split that. And creates another triangle. Well, let's try it without that split first. Let's go File, Export, Collada, Bridge Physics, and see if it's still gonna bug out. Interesting. I wonder if this has to do with Secondlife breaking the other day. Could be these edges are too close together too. Don't you love DAE parsing issues, which are just as bad as mav block errors? Just as annoying, because they don't tell you what's going on. They just expect you to know. Remove doubles. There we go. Now, let's turn this into cubes. Into little quads. As they should be. I'm still trying to keep that ramp there because I want to make sure people are able to get onto the bridge properly. Let's even scoot that back. There we go. No, that was Avastar. That's gonna mess things up. Well, make it harder to show if there's a problem. Physics. Bridge physics. Why is it listing multiple cubes? At least my log is showing things now, so let's see. List of models does not include cube 10. Signing LOD. Okay, interesting. Odd, interesting. Is it my export settings? Oh, you know what it could also be? Let's apply these. And see if that's what's going on as well. Just like before. There we go. Oh, and it's rotated. Okay. Huh. All right. So, let's rotate on the z-axis by 90 degrees and edit mode. Not sure why it's doing that, but apparently one of the steps is make sure you're applying your location and whatnot. This is an inside-out bridge. Hard to tell, but it is. So I'm gonna flip my normals. Let's go to desktop, bridge, and then go here. Actually, you know what I could do? Keep that like that. I'm gonna go apply the location and everything, location, rotation, and scale, to the original bridge as well. So, now that that's set, let's go export. Actually, no. Do what I said because that's not an export option. This. It's interesting that it's modifying the normals like that. I can see that every time I do. Interesting. There also appears to be some faces in this, maybe? There we go. Hate that this won't stay on desktop. Yeah, no weird faces in there. So, Now that we've applied the location and rotation of everything, which should not be something we have to do, but Blender and Second Life don't always get along. So bridge, from file, and then bridge physics. Here we go. Now it's behaving properly. You can tell because your bridge is turned blue in all the places where your physics should be. So it's going to calculate, upload. Destroy the classroom. Yes, good. Now this has come out with, at this size of 3 land impact. That's fine. So let's set it to prim, and we can see that our physics has adjusted as needed once we set it to prim. There you go. Now you can walk on a bridge through an arch. Have fun. So now, so for homework, because we've hit the around about the 2-hour mark, and I've shown a lot of troubleshooting, which is good and bad. Your homework is to make a wall or fencing kit of your own with, if you want to do a pillar that will make it easier to rotate the wall around, that is honestly preferred. However, I want to see your wall able, or fence able to rotate the way that I've shown in this lesson. So I want you to make a wall or fencing kit, and you will get your new button, which now available, we have 5 buttons: bronze, silver, gold, topaz, and now ruby has opened up for lesson 5. So once you've finished all of your homework, you will have up to a ruby button. So thank you for watching, class. I'm excited to see how you put up your new white picket fences around your homes. And have a wonderful afternoon.